for... Hello everybody, welcome back. What a weird hibernation that was. Football starts again here at Stamford Bridge the day after Boxing Day, following on from the long break, and it felt like forever, even with 64 World Cup matches squeezed in between that many of us enjoyed or endured, depending on your point of view. I'm here with Zach and Jason, and we are here first and foremost this early evening with the team news. We'll talk to the boys in a minute, but let's get it straight up for you. And the news is that Dennis Zakaria is playing in midfield, starting, and Reece James is fit to start at right back in what looks like a back four. All of the front four were at the World Cup, so too the central defensive pairing of Thiago Silva and Kalidou Koulibaly. Cucurella plays as well, and Mason Mount, as I mentioned there, in with Sterling, Pulisic and Havertz, all of them at the World Cup, and a real mixed bag on the bench, including young Bashir Humphreys, who is a defensive option. We'll worry about Bournemouth in a bit. Let's talk Chelsea first. Welcome back, gentlemen. Mr. Kanté, Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas to everyone as well. How was it?
Lovely.
Zach, why don't you start?
Yeah, no, lovely. Been a busy month, been a very busy month. I'm glad to be watching Chelsea again.
Ain't that the truth, by the way?
100%. Obviously, England didn't make it to where we wanted them to, so yeah, back for the Chelsea. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's all a bit strange trying to work out who's playing who. I think it's Ecuador against Lapland. I think that's who it is. Is that right? Is that where we are? So what do you make of the team then, Jason?
Well, I mean, look, this was one of the hardest teams to actually predict about what was going to happen. We didn't know about Reece. I thought Reece might be on the bench at the very best. He starts. Look, Reece is one of our most important, if not our most important, our best player, I think, certainly this season, maybe the last 2 or 3 seasons, had he stayed fit. He's crucial, and we've seen how not just Tuchel's struggled, but also Potter has struggled to get that formation right. He still needs Fofana back, he still needs Chilwell back. That will change the way he looks at his back line, whether he wants to go a 3 or a 4. But it looks like a back 4. It's hard to tell when Cucurella plays, of course, but it looks like it's going to be Reece, Koulibaly, Silva and Cucurella. As you said, Zakaria in there with Jorginho. There might be a 4-3-3 with Mace, who sometimes starts on that left and comes in. You've got Sterling one side, Pulisic the other, and Kai up top. It's probably going to be a 4-3-3-ish with a 4-2-3-1 in possession. That's how I see this team lining up. Mace's role, I think, is the one that we need to really look at.
Well, huge to kick off with a win any game, really, but it feels like with 4 defeats out of 5 coming into the World Cup break, this does feel like, people say, is it a good time for a break, a bad time for a break? But either way, this is an opportunity, and the first of our 3 points for 3 points is a kind of reset. And it's almost like, right, this is part 2 of the season. Let's go again and start here, set the tone for what is going to come over these next few months.
No, 100%. I think for a lot of these players as well, they would have never kind of experienced something like this without it being the beginning of a new season. So I think a lot of them will be going into this with a clean slate, a fresh start. For someone like Reece James, who unfortunately had that injury towards the end before the World Cup happened, he'll be looking at this as and being raring to go. Obviously, you saw on social media about how desperately he wanted to go to Qatar and represent England. Obviously, that didn't happen. Fingers crossed, and hopefully he'll have that happen for him in the future. And so, yeah, I think for a lot of these guys, with the way it ended before the World Cup, they'll have wanted that time off. They'll have wanted to maybe reassess things. Obviously, having a change up in manager as well midway through the season gives you a lot of things to kind of look at and deal with at the time. A lot of changes all at once, especially with the backroom staff coming in. And so, yeah, now they've had that month as well, where there's been very much just kind of talks, being able to go and talk to Graham Potter about certain things in your place in the team, what he wants from you, what's expected. And so, yeah, I think a good start, a reset like this, is actually something that Chelsea might have needed, and hopefully we'll see us benefit from it on the pitch.
And getting that crowd on side, Jason, because of course there are a few grumbles. It's going to be 3 straight defeats coming in. It's nearly 30 years since we've had 4 in a row, going back to 1993, and no goals in any of them. So a reset for the whole unit of Chelsea, really, and get some people shouting again at this place.
Yeah, I mean, the word reset I've heard many times, and I agree with it, but what does that actually mean? I've just looked at the results that have taken place yesterday. There's not a lot of reset that I've seen going on, other than at Crystal Palace. I didn't see Fulham going there and winning 3-0. Newcastle picked up where they left off. Arsenal picked up where they left off. West Ham picking up where they dropped off, if you want to use that. Liverpool finding form. Aston Villa struggling under a new manager. It all feels as though there's not really been a break. I've not seen anything yet thus far that I've gone, oh, there's the reset. Let's hope today that we don't go. Let's hope today we go, do you know what? There's the first time I've seen the reset. United have got Forest. United should beat Forest. We should beat Bournemouth today.
Only a few points between the two, even though it's 5 places in the league table. But in terms of today then, maybe if we're talking about trends continuing, both these clubs have been either winning or losing by the odd goal. No one's smashing anyone, no one's getting smashed by anyone. It might be that tight again, Zach.
Yeah, 100%. I think, look, if you'd pointed this game at the beginning of the season, we all would have sat here and said Chelsea should be dominating this game. This is realistically a fixture that Chelsea come away with several goals
we should say that
in the
now
back
as
of
well,
the net.
right?
Oh, 100%. Looking at the money that Chelsea spent in the summer, Graham Potter is a fantastic coach. He should be able to do that. The one thing I will always say is Bournemouth throughout history has kind of been a little bit of a bogey team for Chelsea. There have been several fixtures at their ground and at our ground that have kind of not gone in our way. Hopefully that changes today. And to be honest, I think with someone like Reece James back, you mentioned earlier about how important he is. With someone like Reece James back, it'll galvanise the team. He kind of puts the team on his back.
And the fans, he's so popular.
And the fans, 100%. And I think so much of Chelsea's attacking display goes down that side. And I feel like you see all the other players are better when he's playing there, when he's able to go down that wing and put the balls that he does into the box. You said that there's been no smashings. I'm kind of hoping today that we see one.
It'd be nice, but I think we'll just take 3 points.
Our
sure. Third point for 3 points, Jason. A little bit of a theme there. Bournemouth had an unbelievable start. Gary O'Neill, at one point, they were on the best unbeaten run of anyone in the league. One thing we did see just prior to the winter break, maybe it's relevant, maybe it's not, they did crumble a few times. 2 up with a few minutes to play against Spurs and lost it 3-2. They had a similar capitulation against Leeds, another one against West Ham. There is that in there too. It's whether these Chelsea boys believe, say it's a draw going into the final 10-15, and maybe that plays on Bournemouth minds.
Yeah, look, I know Gary O'Neill very well. I've worked with him on TalkSport. He's one of those managers that would appear right now that is very brave when he's losing, and he's prepared to roll the dice. And
that worries me. Being against him today, worries me.
That goes on to the point I was about to make, is that Forest away, 2-0 down, he changed the shape, made a couple of substitutions, turned it around, 1-3-2. No one saw that coming. That was the beginning of what we're seeing about Gary. Gary is a very brave manager. He will come here today, he won't come here for a point, he's going to come here to try and win the game. But what's really impressive about him is that if things aren't working out, he's prepared to make a big call, change formations, turn something around. Can I do something different? What's happened in recent times, in particular against Spurs, is that he was hanging on a little bit. Spurs changed. Spurs done to him what he's been doing to other teams.
Yeah.
And Kanté got that. Kanté, as we saw yesterday, does that. That's what Spurs do. And it felt a little bit like their backs were against the wall and they didn't quite know how to get out of it. I have no idea how this game's going to go, because Gary O'Neill was still very much in his infancy as a manager, but he is prepared to make bold moves. Do not be surprised if things are going well and he makes a change, or things are going bad, he makes a change. This game has got no life right now, how I can see it going. It could go any way, because there is so much unknown about us because of the changes with the World Cup, and them because they got the new manager. He's a bright manager, by the way. Do not underestimate him.
All things they said about Graham Potter, Zach, and that's
Very
the fact
true.
We've got 2 bosses here who didn't start the season doing the jobs they're doing. Here we are on December the 27th, and that is modern football, isn't it? But a little bit strange just on the Chelsea coach. I mean, we understand he's been across to America to meet the owners during this break. He arrived, and then he had that elongated sort of gap waiting, because football kind of got cancelled because everything that was happening in the wider picture. He's now had this gap as well, but in neither of the gaps did he get to necessarily work with too many players, and it's kind of strange. He's sort of had false starts where he's there, but he's sort of not there, or not able to be as there as he'd like to be.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think this is it now. He's got the squad now till the end of the season. Everything's going to be his team and his tactics. he has had a decent amount of players. Obviously, Kukurea was a player that he had at Brighton as well, and got a lot out of him. Hopefully, we'll start to see that really flourish now as well with Chelsea, because I think at the beginning of his season is something that Kukurea will say didn't maybe go to the degree or the start that he would have wanted, and I think that'll be for a lot of the boys. I think we'll see this side really develop over time, and by maybe the end of January, we will start to see Potter ball or what Graham Potter's kind of football is, because at the moment he's kind of taken over from Tuchel and had to kind of deal with what was there. Keep going with that three at the back formation, keep going with certain players, and then he's had the harsh reality of injuries where Reece James goes and then Chilwell goes, and that can really go against you, and not just those two, can go to Kanté. I mean, the list of injuries for Chelsea just keeps going on, to be honest, but hopefully that is coming to an end, and we'll continue to start to see a lot more brighter things. But yeah, I just think by January we'll really start to see what Graham Potter and his Chelsea side are playing.
Yeah, no question about all of that. We've got two sides developing and still evolving under relative new management here. We have touched on one of the main players today for Chelsea. We're going to have a closer look at him now. Jason, Reece James, so important, whoever the manager is. Who knows what England might have done with him. Talk to us about this guy, and what have you picked out especially here?
Well, look, there's so much about Reece, both ends of the pitch. He's a Rolls Royce of a player, Rolls Reece, if you want to coin a phrase. What he has turned us into, he solves problems in all different formations. He scores goals, he assists. There was a stat, and it eludes me now, but into last season, there was a stat where Chilwell and him had assisted and scored so many goals going into the games that when they both got injured, the drop-off was unbelievable. Just look at the stats that we're talking about now. He's now, when you see that touch and that bring down, that's like a centre forward. Now, if that was Ronaldo that brings that down, you think brilliant. But this is the other end of the pitch, what he does, wins the ball. But it's the physicality of him, and then the composure. It's almost hard to find a fault in his game right now, and of course, at his age, there are faults, and there are things that there needs to be made better, but there ain't many. The only thing that I can actually pinpoint, and it's not criticism, is just keeping fit, and that's no fault of his own. Because once he gets into areas, he delivers the right ball, his selection of pass, his decision-making, both. And this is why someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold has found it hard to really establish himself in the international scene, because Reece has turned up, and it's about his decision-making in the right areas, the selection of cross, the choice of cross, the pace of cross, the pace of pass, the decision to hold the ball, the decision to run with the ball, the decision to make, even going back to the goalkeeper. I don't know about you, Zach. I can't find an immediate fault. Can you get better on all those areas? Yes, because you're never the complete player. But I have to say, I can't think of too many areas you go, okay, for example, I'll use Trent as that. Defensively, can Trent improve? Must improve? Yes. I can't level that right now at Reece. Can he improve? Yes, every player can. But I've got to say, he's almost the complete right wing-back, right full-back, and who knows what he can do when he played in front. He won Player of the Year at Wigan when he was on loan, played in midfield for a lot of that game as well, a lot of that season. So, wow, we're talking about potential world-class right-back here.
No question. Frank Lampard gave him a Champions League debut in central midfield against Lille. And that other thing that he brings to it, Zach, is quite often operating in that sort of inside right channel is Mason. They grew up together. Yeah. Their understanding is brilliant. So it's not just you lose Reece and his qualities. You slightly lose that double act of them being a factor in a game as well, because they know each other's games so well.
100%, yeah. The connection they have, you can add Trevor Chalobah to that as well when they're playing together. There's a real beauty when you're seeing these academy players, and it's not just as well from the academy. It's also now for the past 3 years, past 4 years, past few seasons when they've been in this first team, and having the experience of playing a Champions League final, playing in in Premier League, numerous Premier League games in front of hundreds of thousands of people nowadays, playing on the international stage together. That is something that money can't buy. You can't buy that connection and just the idea of, say, when they were 6 years old and playing together through to 18, 19. It's just knowing that, okay, if I play this ball here, Reece is going to find me with this, or just knowing the full ability that sometimes it can take seasons for you to develop that with your new teammates. And even after that, you may not have it to the same level as someone like Reece James and Mason Mount. It's an incredible feat to have. I mean, we're talking about someone here who is arguably the best in the world in his position. You mentioned Trent Alexander-Arnold there. We've started to maybe see him slightly coming back to the foray and having a lot of plaudits, especially after that game yesterday against Aston Villa. But you mentioned it, yeah. Trent and his defensive issues are kind of always going to be there. It feels like no matter what he does, he'll never be to the same level as Reece James. And that's also because Reece James is a unit. He is huge. And maybe that's partially as to why he might also get some injuries, because sometimes the bigger you are, the harder you fall. But when he is fit and when he is firing and dominating that right wing, that right wing back position, I really don't know in the world whether there is someone who's better. Hakimi got a lot of plaudits at the World Cup, but I really don't think he matches up to...
There's only one man you'll take over Hakimi and Reece, and it's not even a tough decision.
It's Reece James, every day of the week.
Well, that is the main team news, that Reece is fit enough to come straight into the starting 11. Kepa back in goal. Zakaria in the middle there with Jorginho. Remember, Jorginho did not have any World Cup duty. The front four all did, in Havertz and Mount, and Pulisic and Sterling. And from the dim and damp and dingy top of the gantry here down to the stellar Hollywood floodlights of pitchside. And Joe.
Cheers, Ben. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, mate. There is nothing Hollywood down here. I can absolutely promise you that at the moment. Thank you very much for that, boys. Brilliant as always. Of course, we'll keep you up to date and we'll run you right through until kick-off. I'm in the company of Savage Dan and a debutant in Kwaku, mate. Welcome to the team.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I could have picked a better day to come out, but this is the bread and butter. This is what we love. It's going to be a shock to the system. So a lot of players come from Qatar, but this is Premier League football. We love it.
You're absolutely right. There's nothing Bournemouth about today either with the rain. I thought that was a seaside, sunshiny kind of thing. Right, boys, we're going to do shoot, pass, clear, okay, which is a new thing that we're going to do. Shoot is the most likely thing to happen. Pass is kind of could happen, maybe won't happen. And then clear is the least likely thing to happen. So I'll give you 3 scenarios. You have to pick one that's shoot, one that's pass, and one that's clear. Okay, so the first scenario is Chelsea to score in the first 20 minutes. Do we start well? Do we start well, boys? What do you think? Dan, what do you think?
We don't have a great record straight after Christmas, but I think we can turn it around. So I don't want to give that the least likely. I want to say that is probably a pass.
I'd say pass.
Yeah.
Pass.
Okay. Pass is good. I think that's good. Kind of start in the middle. Okay, that's fine. So second scenario, Chelsea to score 3 or more today. Now, we've scored 4 against Bournemouth in the past, I remember that, but they've also scored 4 against us in the past. They can be a high-scoring team. They're starting with Kiefer Moore and Dom Solanke up front. Do you think we're going to go on the front foot? What do you think to that?
Does the weather come into play at any point?
100%. The weather definitely comes into play. Some players have been away on hot weather holidays. The players have been away in Qatar. I think the weather comes into play, but I think Chelsea are more than likely to score 3 goals in that game. So I'm going for shoot in that one.
Shoot.
Okay. I'm going to have to agree. I don't really want to do it, but I've got
Okay,
to
well, I'll
agree.
tell you what, pause that one for a second then, because I'll give you the other scenario and then you can pick between the two. So the other scenario is that Kai Havertz scores twice today. But remember, in the behind closed doors friendly against Brentford last week, he scored a hat-trick. He was in good form for Germany before they went out of the World Cup. He's had a little bit of a rest, and we know there's quite a lot of reliance on Kai.
And he's playing through the middle today. What do you think?
We've seen Kai operate in different places for Chelsea. I think he is comfortable down the middle if you provide him the service. So it's not beyond him to score a brace, but in these conditions, it's going to be pretty tough going.
I'm going to allow you to make the decision on it. Debut day, I'm going to let you make the decision.
I'm going to say clear on the Kai Havertz brace, unfortunately.
Okay, so we're shooting on Chelsea to score 3 or more.
Listen, I'll take any of these scenarios.
Any of these scenarios will absolutely do. It's obviously going to be an interesting one today. You've already alluded to the fact that perhaps Bournemouth are a bit of a bogey team for Chelsea today. They are a good side, and it's going to be interesting as the players come out to get ready in the rain. Do you think that will play a part today, and how do you expect Bournemouth to come?
I expect it to be a tricky game, if I'm honest. I feel like Bournemouth, they seem to be a bit braver against us than they are against our team. So maybe they'll go 2 up top, is what it possibly looks like. They'll try to hit us on the break. I expect us to win, but I do expect us to have to go through a few scares to do it.
it is a bit like that, isn't it? Bournemouth are a good side, come into it very well. I know the boys will have touched upon this a little bit earlier on, but there's certainly nothing to take for granted today. To get back into Premier League football at home to Bournemouth on paper looks like maybe a dream, but in reality it's far from it.
Difficult occasion. You can draw comparisons between Chelsea's situation and Bournemouth's. Like these two young British managers, given an opportunity and a chance by American owners, started unbeaten but have struggled in recent form. And they're looking to take this game and reignite their form in the Premier League. So it's going to be tough for Chelsea, especially against Bournemouth, who are a bogey side. They've won 3 out of 5 games at Stamford Bridge. We win the other 2. So it's going to be tough for us, but I expect us to go out here and beat Bournemouth in the game that we should win.
We hope so, we hope so. The World Cup is going to play a part. We're going to be chatting about this quite a lot, I'd imagine, over the next few weeks, because we've never seen this scenario before. Mid-season, players to come back, players to get involved. Chelsea were the 4th highest team in the Premier League to have the amount of minutes accumulated by players on the pitch. Bournemouth, only 2 players went, Chris Mepham and Kiefer Moore, who starts up front today. Does that play a part? Because Chelsea players played well in the World Cup as a sort of an overarching statement. But
yeah, I think it does. I feel like it. I think the World Cup probably came at a good time for us as a club, but it is disruptive, you know, and essentially it's almost part 2 of a season, but it almost just feels like a complete new season. I think it will have an effect. I'm not sure whether it's a positive or negative one. At least the players have been playing. You know, our players have played a lot of international football, so hopefully they're still fit, still fresh, and hopefully almost like re-energised, revitalised to be able to play club football.
There is a little bit of that as well, Kwaku, that, you know, we had Hakim Ziyech and Mateo Kovacic, who played the maximum games possible, going to the 3rd place playoff. Players that have played well in that tournament come into it in form, and a lot of the time, perhaps around this time, players get injured. Some players like Reece James had the opportunity to rehabilitate his own injury and come back into it without missing a huge amount of football. The World Cup, for a large part of it, could work in Chelsea's favour to that extent.
Definitely. It changed that dynamic, especially going into these winter months. Chelsea historically have not been great in December and January, so maybe this can switch up the form for us. We've seen players like Thiago Silva. He's had a good World Cup despite Brazil underwhelming, and so hopefully they can carry that goodwill and that form into these difficult months of Chelsea, because we know how our form tailed off towards the back end before the break, and now we need to hit the ground running if we're to make the top 4. So I'm backing us to go and really attack this, especially players got things to prove. See Pulisic in the starting lineup as well. He's a player that played decent in the World Cup, so I'm expecting Chelsea to come out firing and for us to put 3 points on the board today.
With Hakim and Mateo obviously not involved today, both given a little bit extra time off, obviously, because they went the distance in the World Cup. Both those players played very well for their countries. Hakim Ziyech more than Mateo Kovacic in terms of being on the fringes a little bit at Chelsea first half of the season. Do you think that gives them a new lease of life as well, and sort of knocking on the door for the manager to say, look what I'm doing on the international stage, I need the opportunity? Yeah,
definitely. I don't think Hakim Ziyech has ever had any question marks over his ability. Everyone knows he's one of the best players about. It's just about being able to do it consistently and to be able to do it when the manager really needs something. We've got a young team, a young squad, still learning, and I think anybody's able to really, you know, kick the door down if they put in a string of good performances. So I'm excited to see Hakim back, and I hope he can come back and give us something that we haven't seen for a while.
There's perhaps a little bit in that as well, Kwaku, isn't there? When you've got a team of Chelsea that I think 12 or 13 players went to the World Cup, there's not many that had more players from the Premier League go. There is an element of not every player can play every week. If there's 15 internationals that are going from Chelsea, they don't start every week. It's physically impossible. So there is an element of as well, showing what you're capable of. Midway through a season, you almost get a second opportunity to tell the manager, look, I'm here, give me that opportunity. And perhaps players that went and didn't play as much, coming back fitter than ever and hungrier to make an impression still. Well,
that's the way that Graham Potter's managed Chelsea since he's come through the door. It's a meritocracy. You play and you're picked based on form. And it's a blank canvas now. The season starts again. We put the first half of the season behind us. It wasn't great. And if you're in form and if you come into the season with confidence, then you are going to get minutes. You are going to play. And he alluded to that in his press conference. So I fully expect to see a rotation in the lineup depending on who is in form. Because we know at the end of the day, it's all about getting the points on the board and progressing in the competition that we're in. So I expect to see Graham Potter use his side and use our big, and our squad's probably our biggest advantage, how deep it is. And I know we've got injuries at the moment, but if we utilise that, there's no reason why we can't achieve the goals that we set out at the beginning of the season.
Completely agree. The teams around us are dealing with this so far. You know, I know we've only been back at Premier League football for 48 hours, if even that so far. There's a certain amount of teams that have played and dealt with it very well. Liverpool looked good yesterday. Some younger players coming into the side as well, making an impression. We've seen that there's a couple of younger lads that are on the bench this afternoon in Lewis Hall and and Bashir Humphreys, Amari Hutchinson get an opportunity at some point. That's going to be key and important in the next couple of weeks as well. Players that perhaps haven't had an opportunity, stepping up and showing they're capable of being a squad player.
Yeah, it always seems like we get it a little bit harder than everyone else. I don't know why. But yeah, look, other teams have managed to deal with the break pretty well. They've come back and they've managed to find their momentum. We have to do the same. You know, today is a game that is winnable. It's at home to Bournemouth. On paper, it's a game that we should take 3 points from, but we have to win and win well and be able to get some points on the board and get momentum. You know, we know this is not far off the same team that just won the Champions League. You know, we know that we can grind out results. We know that we can show character. We know we can win the biggest prizes in football if we all pull in the right direction, all get, you know, the right mentality and do things the right way. It's just about getting momentum now.
Absolutely right. So obviously Christmas is all about spending time with your family, your friends. Football's a massively important thing. I don't know about you, but quizzes always seem to be a really important part as well. We always do trivia. So today, this one I've been told is going to be a difficult one. So today's trivia, boys, we're going to have until half time to deal with this as well. And I haven't got the question in front of me at the moment, so let's have a little look at this. Okay, what do we think then? What do we think about? Don't give me your answer yet. Just ponder it. Just think about it. Okay, we've seen it. Have a little think about it. Debate it. We'll debate it when we're off air because we can't see it at the moment because the rain's causing a few problems with that. But boys, brain-wise, actually, I'm not going to ask you because I've worked with you long enough. Craig, what's your quizzing like?
Yeah, pretty decent.
Yeah?
Football trivia's decent. I'll back myself.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. When's your wheelhouse? When's your era? Because this question is going to come from Dan's era. I'm certain of it. So Dan,
They all come from my era.
I'll give away my age a little bit, but my era is probably the Vialli era when he was playing manager Chelsea. That's my era.
Okay.
So late 90s to 2012, 13. That's my prime.
okay.
Absolute prime.
Okay, fine. We'll rely on that. We'll rely on that quite a lot. In terms of Vialli, we'll touch on it very briefly because obviously Gianluca Vialli is unwell at the moment. He's undergoing cancer treatment in a London hospital. What a huge player, what a huge presence, and I know that everyone here at Chelsea obviously just wants to send their best wishes, but Vialli, I know that you are such a massive fan of him. Who isn't? But what a player and what a man.
An incredible player. I've still actually got a hanger. I had a coat hanger and it had Vialli's head. Don't ask me why. But Vialli was probably, you know, one of my earliest memories. He brought me my probably my most important Chelsea memories, you know, like the big ones that, you know, where I really fell in love with the club. I was always in love with the club, but that era, the yellow kit, the yellow away kit, I really fell in love with Chelsea. You know, it didn't even really matter about winning all the trophies. It was just, I wanted to see them every week. So for me, Vialli is, you know, a huge part of the reason I love Chelsea so much. So I'm sure I join absolutely everybody in saying, you know, get well soon, wish you all the best.
Absolutely right. Yeah, we hope to see him at Stamford Bridge very, very soon. Right then, now it's time for the warm-up.
Strong, fast, and furious. Visit Chelsea.pm and enter the draw to win amazing prizes, including tickets to Stamford Bridge, signed merchandise, and VIP watching training classes. Fire up the game with Match.
Good evening again, everybody, and welcome to Stamford Bridge as the Premier League returns. Chelsea versus Bournemouth here at the Bridge, and a restart and all of that and all those cliches for the Blues under Graham Potter. And who knows where we'll be by the end of this season, or indeed the end of this year. You think 12 months is a funny thing, isn't it? 12 months ago, Chelsea top of the table under Thomas Tuchel, and then it was one of those Christmas and New Year wobbles. That happens quite a lot, Jason.
24 months ago, we were top of the table as well. Don't forget that, when under Frank Lampard. We know what happened over Christmas, and then going into the new year, and then Tuchel took over, and we're in the Champions League, and all of a sudden, you know, we are such a club that functions under chaos over the last 15, 16, 17, 18 years. It does feel as though there's a shift in the way that the club is approaching things right now. This is a difficult period. We need 3 points. I can't get away from that right now, but look, it's amazing how football can change. Look where Arsenal are 18 months ago. Gunners wanted him out. You know, it's a valid point to think about how that we have, over the last 2 decades or so, hire and fire, win trophies, hire, fire, win trophies. No other club has done that. And you've got Arsenal, the model where they are right now, and they're playing well. They are in with the title shout, make no mistake about it.
Well, it's a fascinating thing. You could draw the parallels, that, couldn't you? Or maybe you say, well, they are a totally different model. You know, they've had 3 managers in the time Chelsea have had 100.
Absolutely.
But the point Jason makes there is a really valid one. There are definitely 2 occasions during the course of this Arteta tenure where, had he been Chelsea manager, he would have gone. There was one right at the start of last season. There was one about a year and a bit, I want to say, before that. He's just simply, and maybe not just at Chelsea, he would not have survived those. But if you are willing to give him that time that people always talk about, maybe you come through. And who knows, we may have had that with Frank. We may not have done. We may have had it with many other managers who didn't have that long. But clearly the trophy count tells you that. There doesn't seem to be any noise just because of one bad month about Potter. He had a brilliant start, unbeaten in 9, won 5 of his first 6 in charge. But, you know, these things do take time, but historically Chelsea have never given it. Do you feel like this one might be different?
I think, yeah, 100%. This one will be very different. I think under the previous ownership, I don't think many Chelsea fans will complain. We won the Champions League twice, numerous trophies, the Premier League, the FA Cup, you name it. We won it all, and I think every Chelsea fan is very, very happy after all that success that came to Stamford Bridge, and the players and the managers. And every manager did it in their own way, and every manager built a relationship with the fans in their own way. But I think a lot of fans maybe kind of went under the guideship of, okay, I'm not going to get too attached to a manager with the worry that maybe one day he'll one bad month and he is gone. I remember that particularly with Frank Lampard. And then Thomas Tuchel came in and we win the Champions League, and that's just what it is being a Chelsea fan, or was being a Chelsea fan. I do think things are changing. With this ownership, they've seen what the likes of Arsenal are doing, they've seen what the likes of City are doing, they've seen what the likes of Liverpool have done. In committing into a guy who wants to play progressive football and also wants to build a dynasty and build a strong team and bring through young talent and academies. And I think that is what we'll see with Graham Potter.
Well, we're getting the light show pre-match here with the players just beginning to come into the tunnel, Jason. Just thinking about something you mentioned earlier. Top 4, we're not thinking title, clearly here at the moment. Newcastle, obviously, one huge fly in the ointment. The resurgent Manchester United may be another. Liverpool aren't in there at the moment. Chelsea aren't in there at the moment. Tottenham are, somehow, despite seemingly being a bit rubbish, and yet they are there. This is a proper scrap. But are we saying 2 places? Are we saying City and Arsenal are going to be the top 2, and then it's 2 of God knows how many more beneath? Or is it too early for that?
Right now, it looks like 3 or 4 teams are scrapping out for 1 place. That's how I see it. I think
for 1 place?
Yeah.
Well, who are you giving the 3rd one to?
Newcastle.
You're saying they're top 4 already? Wow.
No. What I'm saying is, right now, the scrap is on for that 4th place, because Newcastle, there is something going on at Newcastle, and actually, they've not spent a lot of money. They spent, what, 150 million tops?
They spent most of it on a striker who's really good but hasn't been fit for
Is that right? Okay. And they've also got a manager that right now has found a formula and found a way of getting the crowd behind them, something they've lacked under Ashley and Steve Bruce and various different things. But there's something going on. But they're the most vulnerable of the two. Arsenal there, for me, Arsenal there to stay. If they keep Martinelli fit, if they keep get Jesus back, and also continue with Odegaard. There's a lot going on at Arsenal. They are a very settled, well-balanced, well-organised, well-disciplined, well-coached team.
Right, and that's what we now need to see from Chelsea then, to break back towards it. I mean, there's a game in hand as well, the Fulham match that never happened. It can look very different, can't it, a couple of weeks from now?
Look, there's no other way of dressing up today's game. It's must win. If we want any chance of top four, anything less than a win it's almost another nail, because there are so many other teams that are gathering pace. Liverpool, 3 games on the sprint. Man United under Ten Hag got rid of Ronaldo. That cloud has gone. Newcastle, no sign of slowing up. Arsenal, City, they're going to come again. There's a lot of traffic, and Spurs will probably find a way to still be there or thereabouts, even though they're dreadful first half.
Well, let's hope they continue being dreadful. They stole some points from Bournemouth just before the World Cup break, and the Cherries are the first out of the tunnel here at Stamford Bridge. Beneath us, we are high in the East Stand as ever. Bournemouth in their red and black, followed by the Blues in the blue with the White Sox, lining up with the match officials, with the flames going off. And it is welcome back Premier League football for Chelsea, hoping to start, well, the end of one year, as you mean to go on at the start of the next. It'll be Forest away to kick off 2023, but to finish yet another eventful year. Is there ever anything else at this football club? It is this match here at home to Bournemouth, who, as Zach mentioned earlier, if you were with us for the team news show, have come here and indeed hosted the Blues before and caused more problems than you feel should have happened. The Chelsea lineup has Kerr back in goal. Mendy was on World Cup duty, Kerr wasn't fit before it. Thiago Silva and Koulibaly are the 2 centre-backs, both of them on World Cup duty. Neither of the full-backs were, though. Marc Cucurella on the left, Reece James on the right. Zakaria gets a Premier League bow for the Blues in midfield with Jorginho. And it's Mount, Sterling, Pulisic and Havertz in the forward positions. Bournemouth have Travers in goal, Smith, Senesi, Kelly, Stacey and Zamora. A few new names in there and a few old ones like Lewis Cook and the always combative Jefferson Lerma in midfield. Philip Billing, Kiefer Moore, the Welsh centre forward, and Dom Solanke, the former Blue.